My husband and I are in our late 40s and got married in 2019. This is our second marriage, and surprise, surprise, we're not having children due to our age. We each have 2 kids from our previous marriages. My husband has a daughter who's away at college and a teen son who lives with his mom mostly, but sometimes with us. Our house is my husband and I and my 2 kids, who are young teen and tween. On to the actual event. My husband had a great uncle who recently passed away. My husband inherited a gently used GMC SUV. I don't know a ton about cars. I know the car is a 2017, and I've seen used ones with low mileage go for nearly $20,000 online, sometimes more. Here's the issue we're having. Remember how I said my husband's son is a teen? My husband thinks the car would be a great gift to him. He plans on giving him the car regardless of how I feel. The fair thing to do would be to sell the car for as much as we can and divide that money up equally between the 4 kids. That way everyone can benefit, not just my stepson, who happens to be a teen. My husband has been mean to me about this. He's telling me that I have zero say. It was his uncle, and the car was given to him, not the family. He said his son has an after-school job, and he needs the car to be less of a stress on him, me, and his ex. We all sometimes have to chauffeur him to and from work since he has no car. He's a teen. If he gets $4 to $5 grand from the sale of the GMC, that is more than enough money for him to buy a starter car that can take him around town and work. My husband agrees that he technically can do that, but he's not going to because he wants his son to have this car. I'm stressed because he's basically telling me he's going to do what he wants and that I don't get a say. Aren't a husband and wife supposed to come to an agreement together? He told me if I had a relative die, we would do whatever I wanted with the inheritance, and he would not interfere one bit. I have major issues with this logic, though. He even went as far to say that we could sell the car and split the money up amongst the kids, but now he'll buy an equal value car for his son out of our joint bank account. I thought it was a jerk thing to say, but am I an idiot all along? You are the idiot. The entitlement, so gross. Your kids should not be getting anything from their stepfather's inheritance. Yuck. What he does with the car he inherited is his business. You just opened your husband's eyes, though. Now he knows that he married someone very greedy and selfish. But what about me? Wow, your greed is appalling. You want your kids to benefit and get $10,000. That's it. You are thinking only about yourself and your kids. If the roles were reversed, do you honestly think you'd have the same idea you have now? That after only being married 4 to 5 years, your great uncle meant so much to your new spouse's kids that they should get an equal inheritance? That's a bunch of crap and you know it. Quit thinking the world owes you something and think about other people for a change. Technically, he could just split it between his biological kids too. I too think a $20,000 value car is a bit expensive for a new teen driver, which at the son's age is what he is. Also, did Dad ask the ex-wife her opinion? Is he going to pay for the car insurance and the registration too? That won't be cheap. I hope OP gets a separate bank account and only puts in what she needs to cover household bills in their joint account. The fact that they didn't discuss it among the 3 adults responsible for the kid, which she is, or she shouldn't need to do a dang thing for the kid, but Dad having the final say on what he wants to do with his inheritance, is pretty rude. It's everyone's the idiot here situation, but I hope you set up a separate stash from hubby. He obviously doesn't do calm discussions of opinions. My dad and his wife blended their families 7 years ago. My brother, a young teen, and I, a teen male, come from our parents' marriage. Our mom died 9 years ago. Beth, Luke, and Laura come from my dad's wife's first marriage. My dad and his wife also have Katie, a young female child, together. I have a pretty complicated history with a learning disability. I was diagnosed before my mom died, and I always struggled with school, reading, and writing. I use tech to help me write stuff like this. I can speak fine, but actually reading or writing anything, including numbers, is terrifying to me. It has meant that I need a lot of extra help in school. My mom used to read stuff like menus out to me. My brother started doing this when he got better at reading too. It's something I can't hide, and it's embarrassing as heck. It's something my step-siblings have made fun of forever. Beth made a really hurtful comment the first time she realized it, and her mom corrected her. But since she and her siblings were not happy with their mom meeting my dad, and since I would do things differently, like I never did homework at home, they would tease me and taunt me behind their mom's back. I spoke up a few times and it got corrected pretty hard. Eventually it got to the point where I no longer saw the point of saying anything. Around that time it got to the point where I'd tell my friends to pretend my step-siblings weren't part of my family or my life because I didn't want them to be. I got my license over the summer and got permission to drive my dad's car. I've been bringing my brothers places sometimes, and suddenly my step-siblings have been trying to be nice to me. I ignore them. I say no to bringing them places. A few days ago, Beth wanted to attend this dance practice related to her dance class. Her mom couldn't take her because she was sick, and my dad wasn't around. My dad's car was at home though, so she asked me to bring her. I said no. She followed me around begging, and I kept saying no. Finally, Luke and Laura joined in, and they said that we're family and should do things for each other, and that I never help them out. I told them I only help people I care about, which doesn't include them. Their mom overheard, and once my dad got home, they told me that what I said was really unfair and cruel. They took away my ability to drive the car. Dad wanted me to apologize and say that I didn't mean it, but I did. I can see they all think I'm wrong about this. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. They're mocking you for a disability. That's an idiot move. Instead, tell your stepmom that mocking your disability is ableist. Hopefully your father and stepmother use this as an opportunity to nip this dysfunction in the bud. She decided not to take no for an answer and has always tormented you. I think it's too late to nip this in the bud when they've already let it fester for years. The plant's dead and rotting by now, not budding. They only want to be family when it's convenient for them. No one took your side when you were being bullied. Accept the punishment and don't care about the revoking of privilege. I say this because it is unlikely your parent and step-parent will take your side and return the privilege, and it'll just make you feel worse expecting support from people that'll not give it to you. Sorry you're going through all of this. I, 24 female, have a toddler son named Cass, who's the light of my life. He's a real sweetheart, and if he had it his way, he'd be carried around in my arms all day long, only to be put down when we come across a cool bug. Unfortunately, he doesn't talk very often, which I was worried about in the beginning because, as a young mom, I worried about almost everything. Still, the pediatrician told me he'd likely become more talkative over time. I'm currently looking into speech therapist to see if that'll help a bit, and we're also learning sign language, so Cass can switch to that when he doesn't feel like using his voice. He's such a smart kid, and he's so curious about everything. All he ever wants to do is explore and learn about new things. I'm so proud of him, and I love being his mom and seeing the world through his eyes. My mom, 50, doesn't like my approach to my son's tendency to not speak very often. A few times he'll be asking for something, and she'll refuse because he isn't using his voice. It's one of the main reasons why I never ask her to babysit, because it bothers me when she does that, and I stop it every time. We were all at a restaurant with my stepdad, 55, my stepbrother, 30, and his wife, 30, and their son, James, preschooler. When it came time to order, I read some options out to Cass, and he signed yes for the meal he wanted. James spoke to the waiter on his own. When the waiter walked away, my mom got upset with me. She said that because I'm the parent, I need to tell Cass to get over his stubborn attitude about speaking, and that his refusal to do so is ridiculous. My stepdad then expressed concerns that James was saying full sentences by 2 years old, but Cass is older than that, and he'd only ever heard him say about 5 words. I told them both that I didn't appreciate them trying to have that conversation with me in front of Cass at a family lunch. But then my mother said that if Cass had an issue, he should use his voice to tell them that, instead of relying on me to do it for him. I ended up flagging the waiter down and asking for my part of the bill and if I could get the food to go, because I didn't think it was fair for my son to have to sit there and listen to them talk about him like he couldn't understand what they were saying. Once I paid and got the food, we went home. My mom texted me later, saying that I was doing my son a disservice by not making him speak, that it was rude of me to leave lunch like that just because I didn't like the way the conversation was going, and that it spoke to my immaturity. Truthfully, if I had pushed him to do it, I know he would have verbalized what he wanted, but he clearly felt more comfortable signing, so I didn't feel the need to do that. Regardless, was it an immature or idiotic move to leave like that? Absolutely not the idiot. I have a child who's on the autism spectrum and has selective mutism. The situations you're describing sound so familiar to me. And the worst thing you can do is push the issue and force them to talk. Not only will it not work, but it can also worsen the issue. You're doing right by your child. Your mother is being an ignorant idiot. Rather ableist of your mom to act like signing isn't speaking. It's called sign language for a reason. And not only is it not constructive to compare the two kids' speech abilities, but it's also needlessly cruel to do it in front of them. You're exactly right. They're speaking about him like he can't understand. But again, that's also ableist, because not speaking is obviously not the same as not hearing and comprehending. Good on you for standing up for your son. Unfortunately, it sounds like they still intend to keep pushing you about this, so be prepared for how you'll deal with it. Going low or no contact until they stop bringing it up and communicating with your child respectfully is a good option. My dad is not a warm man or a great dad, but he makes some effort with his kids. He adores my mom, but really doesn't seem to care about anyone else. He was never the warm, affectionate type, but at least he made some effort to know us. The issue is I've been with my wife, Maddie, for 6 years, and he knows nothing about her, literally. He's never tried to initiate a conversation with her beyond basic greetings, hasn't been very responsive when she talks to him, and basically after 6 years, they're still strangers. I'm not convinced my mom actually likes Maddie, but she still has basic small talk with her and asks her normal questions like how work is going, what are you doing for your birthday, what are you into, etc. Maddie's told me a few times that my dad makes her uncomfortable with how little he interacts with her, and she feels like he doesn't like her. I've explained that it's nothing personal, but I've also been paying more attention to their interactions. We recently spent a weekend away with my parents, and he only spoke to Maddie once, and it was to ask what she wanted on her sandwich, and only because my mom sent him to ask. I also recently learned that he doesn't even know her birthday. I confronted him, and he said he didn't marry Maddie, so what does it matter? I was pretty annoyed and said that it was weird and hurtful. I told him he needed to treat her like a human being and a family member. He said he is treating her like a human being, and he doesn't want to talk to most of them either. I finally laid down a boundary that he cannot meet our son, due in January, until he shows some basic interest in Maddie. I explained that my wife is not an incubator and that he just can't be around our son unless he can treat her like a person. My dad rolled his eyes but said, okay. But my mom went crazy and said I was ruining the family and asking if this was really coming from Maddie or me. She said her own father-in-law knows nothing about her. Dumbest argument ever, as my dad has been no contact with him for decades. My siblings all agree and say I'm being crazy and should leave him alone. My mom told me that Maddie isn't all that special and we aren't entitled to my dad's interest. You are the idiot, OP. He doesn't even know her birthday. You act like that's some awful tragic thing. Who cares if he doesn't know her birthday? She's not a toddler who'll get sad if people don't get her a birthday present. Some people are just super introverts. Are you really going to deprive your child of his grandfather because of some weird idea in your head of how people should interact? He's not insulting towards Maddie. He just doesn't talk to her because he doesn't talk to anyone. You and your wife need to get over yourselves. If your dad makes your wife uncomfortable because of his quietness, she doesn't have to see him. Not the idiot. I have social anxiety and it's not that hard. My dad is also socially awkward and doesn't even speak very much English, and he still tries. They're placating a grown man. I get not being outgoing, but some nods and smiles and small talk are not that hard. You're right. Your wife isn't an incubator, and your mom's reaction shows me this isn't about your dad just being a dad, but their dislike for her. My mom actually told me that Maddie isn't all that special and we aren't entitled to my dad's interest. Wow, then they're not entitled to the baby's interest. Does mom maybe not want dad to have a relationship? If I stayed with my in-laws all weekend and they only talked to me to ask me what I wanted on my sandwich, so bizarre, so awkward, I'd leave. They obviously don't care or want me there. Why stay? It's just rude and disrespectful. You're going about this wrong. There will never be a bond between your parents and Maddie. They made that clear. Go no contact with them and any others who defend them. There will never be any peace. So let them stew in their juices and save yourself the grief of dealing with them. I'm going on holiday with my husband's family next week. We have a baby. Husband made the bookings for the resort and flights. He managed to get a package that gave us 1 suite and 2 regular rooms between the 7 of us. My husband and I assumed that we would have the suite since we have 3 people and also made the bookings. However, when we called his parents and siblings to discuss the itinerary, his mother had different ideas. She started giggling and said she was excited to have the suite to herself and father-in-law. She started talking about seeing the balcony's stunning view from the suites. I stopped her and told her no, husband and I would be in the suite. I reminded her that she and father-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother-in-law always come to our room to play with the baby, and that I'm not comfortable not having a private bedroom. I reminded her that the suite came from my and my husband's points at that hotel chain, and if she wanted to upgrade, she could pay for it. She started telling me off, saying I was selfish and she deserved a holiday. Husband shrugged and cut her off by saying he booked the suite for us. She hung up the call. Sister-in-law and brother-in-law told me she's been fuming since and saying that I'm a greedy idiot. Wait, she's not paying for the suite, correct? It's your points, and you used your time to book rooms for everyone? Massive not the idiot. It can use their money and upgrade to a suite if they want it so bad. However, it's scary how much control she has over the family if the siblings have the nerve to call you a greedy idiot. Let her fume all she wants. Having a suite with a baby is essential. Baby can nap without being woken up by someone in the living room. Mother-in-law can play with the baby while you nap. Why she thinks she's entitled to the suite is beyond my comprehension. Selfish and entitled. Yuck. Poor father-in-law will have to listen to her yak about the whole thing forever. Honestly, cancel the trip if they're not grateful. They're just going to complain all the time. But be careful. If you and your in-laws aren't traveling together, expect her to get to the hotel first and try to claim the suite. She'll try to lie to the front desk and say that her son, who booked the rooms, agreed that his parents would have the suite. If the front desk allows this, good luck getting her out of the suite after you arrive. She may make a public scene if the front desk refuses her request. Just be prepared that your husband telling his mother that she isn't getting the suite may not be the end of it, as far as she's concerned. I, female, have been married to my husband, Jeff, for a year. He has a daughter, tween, with his deceased wife. When I first met Jeff, it was obvious that he was struggling as a single parent. For my stepdaughter's birthday, he'd usually get a cake from the bakery. This has been the case since her mom passed away. I wanted to bake her a birthday cake for her upcoming birthday, which was last week, as a gesture to show some motherly love and support. Jeff agreed, and he told me what his daughter's favorite flavors were, what she likes, and so on. I baked the cake in the flavor she liked, and the icing she liked, but one thing needed to be added, and that was the blueberries. I couldn't include them because I went to the nearest store, and they didn't have them. I was running out of time and couldn't get them, so I just left the cake as is, thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. The party started, and Jeff was busy taking care of everything else. He then came into the kitchen to ask to see the cake before bringing it out. I showed it to him, and he got so angry when he saw no blueberries on top. He went on and on about how I didn't fully commit to making the cake, and that he had trusted me to take care of it, and said he should have just ordered one from the bakery. We got into an argument, and he ended up taking it and throwing it in the trash can. I was stunned as he said, "You know what? Forget it. I'll get one from the bakery." I blew up and screamed at him. He told me to stop, But I went upstairs, got dressed, and left. He tried getting me to stay, but I refused and went to my parents. He later called and texted about how I overreacted and hurt him and my stepdaughter by leaving. He also said I created this situation by not properly making the birthday cake just because I didn't put blueberries on top. I refused to respond, but my parents say he was justified since he must have felt pressure from the stress of making his daughter happy on her birthday. He keeps trying to speak to me, but I don't respond. Am I the idiot? Did I overreact? Not the idiot. He threw away a homemade cake because there were no blueberries on it? And you think you overreacted? Lady, wake up. Has he had explosive reactions like this in the past? Because that's kind of scary. If he reacts this way over missing blueberries, what happens when something really goes wrong? OP, this. I get it's his daughter's birthday, but he threw away the cake. He then tries to get you to stay, to have you there to blame, and says you overreacted. I'm sorry, this guy has some serious control and anger issues he needs to work through. I bet you he was angry OP left so that she wasn't around for him to blame. You know, those offhand comments like, oh, this is a quick store-bought cake because we had a little snafu with the other cake. Or, oh, I'm so sorry, sweetie. I had to get another cake because stepmom didn't make the right one. He probably still made those comments, especially in her absence, so she can't defend herself. And did the cake he bought have blueberries on it? And did he even buy her a cake? Or did he just blame OP for there being no cake at all? He could have even told his daughter that her stepmom threw out the cake and refused to come to her party because of her. I truly could see a man like this doing something like that. From his victim's blamey phone call, it's clear to see he isn't afraid to be manipulative. Like, I'm sorry, but he can go get a new cake, but he couldn't go get blueberries to put on top. This was never about the blueberries, in my opinion. This was a massive bomb just waiting to go off. And for some reason, the blueberries were what detonated it. What's the bet that the cake was the one OP's stepdaughter's mother used to make, and it was never going to be just right, even if it did have blueberries on it? I wonder if the parents were abusive, and that's why OP also ended up with an abusive husband. That would also explain why they excused the husband's behavior. He's already verbally abusing you, humiliating you, and treating you like crap after only 1 year. His behavior is completely insane. I cannot imagine being married to someone who would ever treat me this way. You need to annul this marriage immediately and start making plans to leave. This is not going to get better. This happened 3 weeks ago. On Monday, as usual, I, 29 male, woke up at 6 a.m. to go to work. I was taking a shower and everything was okay, but as I stepped out of the shower, I fell down. I touched the floor and it was greasy, so my husband, 32, came out of our room with the camera recording everything and laughed out loud. I wanted an explanation, and he said it was just a prank. He had spread butter on the floor for me to fall down because his brilliant friends thought it would be a great idea to play pranks on their spouses and to post them online and go viral. One of the morons even pushed his pregnant wife into a pool. I was speechless, kind of in shock. I felt insecure and vulnerable. I was thinking, come on, you're supposed to have my back, not make fun of me. So I didn't argue. I didn't say anything. I just left for work. He even told me before leaving, you might be angry now, but I promise I will compensate you tonight. Throughout the day, I started analyzing the event. I found it childish, disrespectful, and blatantly stupid. I mean, thank heavens nothing terrible happened. But what if I hadn't grabbed the curtain and my head or neck hit the bathtub? I could be dead. I'm not joking. A severe head injury can be life-threatening. I would never risk his integrity like that because he's my husband. I respect him and I love him. He's usually very wise and smart, but this time he acted like a stupid teenager. So that day, I didn't feel like seeing my husband. I went to my dad's to cool down, but I haven't gone home in 3 weeks because I'm still angry at him. I asked my dad to go and pack my things. At first, my husband didn't want to let him in, but he ended up allowing it. I haven't even answered his calls, and I'm seriously reconsidering our relationship. We've been married for 3 years. He's caring and loving and has never done something as irresponsible and stupid as this. He's been bombarding my phone with apology messages and begging me to be back. But I don't know. To be honest, I don't look at him the same way I did before. So now everyone but my dad is telling me that it's time to forgive because he didn't do it to hurt me. And perhaps he didn't see beyond consequences and think it could be life-threatening. That I'm overreacting because it's just a prank. But this isn't some 6-year-old child who doesn't see beyond the prank. This guy's a doctor. He knows what a head injury could mean. So I don't know, guys. Am I really overreacting? Everyone seems to agree that I am. Even my mom does. Yeah, I know that he might not have done it hoping I would die, but it's just so disrespectful. And there was a chance it could be life-threatening. My friend died from falling in the shower and hitting his head on the floor. Your husband could have killed you for views. So not only are you not the idiot, but if roles were reversed and a girl I was married to decided to do anything for TikTok clout, I'd reconsider my marriage. And I'm talking lesser offenses, such as, I don't know, something less dangerous than spreading butter on the bathroom floor. He did this after his friend pushed his pregnant wife in a pool and still thought it was hilarious? I'd be so done, whether it's cake smashing in a bride's face or this messed up crap. Sweetie, do not give him a second chance. He was laughing at your pain. This should be an instant deal breaker. Frankly, what the husband did was assault. I'm inclined to report him to his practice or hospital. People like him should not be in healthcare. Sorry, wait. The husband is a doctor? OMG. I missed that he's a doctor in the first read-through. What in the ever-living heck? I'm an ERRN, and I'm horrified. So I'm changing my earlier musings. Run and don't look back. That a physician would do this is a whole new level of scary. Don't listen to anyone who says forgive him. They're saying that because a doctor is a good catch. Yeah, catch and release. There's something seriously wrong with him and his friends. If it were me, I would seriously worry if he wasn't trying to kill me and make it look like a prank gone wrong. My son is in college, 19. I'm going to be blunt. He was a nightmare to try to teach things to. I would sit him down and show him how to do his laundry, for example. He would leave halfway through and then screw up when doing it himself. I would show him again, and he would still mess it up. He broke the vacuum since he refused to pick up the large stuff. It was for everything, and I believe it was to get out of chores. We once got into a huge argument since I made him clean up the whole kitchen after he spilled the garbage all over the floor. It didn't rip, he didn't tie the top. I got a call today about how I didn't teach him to balance a checkbook. I tried. He's ended up overspending on his credit card and will now have credit card debt. He asked for the money to pay it off since it's my fault he messed up. I told him no. This started an argument, and I told him it's not my fault he messed up, and he can't blame me. He called me a jerk and called his grandparents, and they're on my back now. Edit. Balancing a checkbook is when your transactions match on the bank statement and you're not overspending money you don't have. Not the idiot. He's playing you. He has the internet. Tell him to Google. Do not keep placating him. He's still looking for skeins to be responsible for his life. You don't have to balance a checkbook like it's some kind of magical task. If your budget for the month is $500, then everything you spend in the month has to add up to less than $500. This isn't magic. It's addition, and is taught in elementary schools. Tell grandparents they can pay off the credit card if they're so concerned. Just make sure you don't. He's 19, and it's time for him to grow up. If you bail him out, he'll never change. And then in a few months, you'll have to bail him out again, and again, and again. In this instance, you are not the idiot, but this sounds like years of dysfunction. And did you ever try to find out if there were underlying causes, possible reasons for his frustration and his struggle to learn things? Ultimately, How your 19-year-old acts and spends their money is not your fault, but this also sounds like only the tip of a massive iceberg of issues. Has your son ever been tested for ADHD? Or have you just spent the last 19 years telling him how messed up he is? Maybe there is a reason for this behavior. It's obvious OP wrote off the child years ago when he was in fact still a child because he couldn't meet OP's standards. Whatever happened to empathy and understanding when teaching people? LOL. There's so much being left out here. It sounds like you have a crap relationship with your son. The chores themselves are not the issue here. You could be a bad teacher. Ever think of that? Came to say this. Why do you hate him? You sound so angry through the whole thing. When you tried to teach him, did you only do it once and immediately gave up when he didn't do it perfectly? I'm 29. I live alone, and I still can't do laundry the way my Nana taught me. As others have said, did you get him tested? Did you even have the tiniest amount of patience? Or did you scream he's a screw-up every time and give up? Something about this screams a bad parent. I owe my brother around $300. He fronted me some money for a family vacation and said I could pay him back in a 3-paycheck month. My husband and I are hosting a small dinner with the family members, and my brother's family arrived on Monday to stay through the weekend. His 2 kids, toddler and young grammar schooler, are generally well behaved, but they're still kids, so I told him to keep them out of the bonus room, currently half finished, and my craft room. Y'all know where this is going, so I'll just cut to the chase. I came home yesterday to find the kids splayed out on the living room floor, surrounded by art supplies in ruined condition. They were finger painting with my gouache, and it completely cross-contaminated the colors, drawn on my good watercolor paper with Copic markers, completely crushing the tips, and ruined or dirtied several items that my friend had bought me from Korea. I confronted my brother, who was casually watching TV, and he told me that he didn't let the kids go in the craft room. He had gone in himself and grabbed them just a couple of things to entertain themselves with. He agreed to buy me replacements until I started tallying up the cost, then backtracked and said the price was BS, and started insisting that most of the stuff was still in usable condition. I said, fine, you don't have to replace anything, but you can forget about that vacation money. He snapped at me not to argue in front of the kids. I said, who's arguing? Sounds like the conversation is over. Now he wants me to pay the vacation money immediately and work out the cost of the art supplies afterward. I feel like he's just going to try to haggle me or is going to replace my stuff with Crayola and call it even. Not the idiot. Debt is debt. That's why a ledger shows both credits and debts. You and your brother have a ledger of transactions between you. He gave you $300. You were at negative $300. It is totally justified to now use the art supply debt that he owes you to calculate your debt. Figure out what needs to be replaced. Replace it. Take a photo of the receipts and text it to your brother. If it comes out to $325, tell him he owes you $25. If it comes out to $275, send him the $25 you owe. You are the idiot. You can't just decide to cancel a separate debt, especially since there hasn't been an agreement on what's owed. Honestly, the whole thing is just so petty though. It's a few replaceable art supplies your nieces and nephews were interested in. Instead of making a thing about you, you could have chalked it up to being a present from their uncle and took the time to show them the proper way to use them. Those few replaceable art supplies are going to cost hundreds of dollars to replace. OP, you're right that if you were to pay him the money in full, he'd try and replace your supplies with substandard quality crap. Non-artists never understand how appallingly expensive good quality artist materials are. It isn't your fault that he didn't know that and just gave his kids your supplies without your permission so he didn't have to entertain his own kids. Last night, I, female 46, had a glass of wine while watching a movie with my daughter, Teen, and she asked me if she could try some. Normally, I'm strict with my children when it comes to alcoholic beverages, but I didn't think a little wine would hurt, so I poured her a glass. I told her that this would be a once-in-a-blue-moon exception. My husband, 48, on the other hand, was not okay with this. When he came into the living room and saw her with the wine in her hand, he lost his mind. He started shouting at me, asking why the heck I let her drink alcohol at her age, and said she could easily become addicted to it. I immediately felt bad and apologized, but my husband was still angry with me over this. I don't think he trusts me anymore. Am I the idiot for letting my teen daughter drink? Edit. His family actually does have a tragic past. When my husband was a little kid, his father drank too much and passed away on Christmas Eve night. Not the idiot. This is the perfect way to introduce your daughter to it. It's a safe, controlled environment with people, her parent, she trusts most in the world. You want her to learn healthy habits, and drinking in moderation with you right next to her removes a lot of the appeal of it. You're taking away any lingering mystique or stigma. If it's not forbidden or an adult thing that she's not allowed near or trusted with, then it loses a lot of the appeal. Binge drinking is a real issue, especially in college, and a lot of it stems from how we treat alcohol as something that's to be hidden. I'm going against the grain here, but you are the idiot, not because you introduced her to wine. Plenty of us would say that this is exactly the healthiest way to teach older kids to have a responsible relationship with alcohol before they leave home and are on their own. But she's underage, and you have a co-parent who this should have been discussed with. I think to deny them any input on a decision like serving a drink to your child for the first time was a mistake worth apologizing for. OP, you blindsided your partner and took an important decision without consulting their opinion. Also, it's not just illegal at 16 because governments are lame. There are biological reasons for why teenagers shouldn't be having it. Also, having a sip is way different from having a glass of wine. If you wanted your kid to just try it, you didn't have to offer a full glass. I would be livid if my husband did this. Did you see OP's edit that her husband's father had issues and died on Christmas Eve due to alcohol? This makes her even more awful. Obviously, parents should agree to something like this, but in this specific situation, it's far worse. This was an idiot move because this is clearly a new horizon for your child, and so it needs to be a joint parenting decision. Very obviously, this wasn't something you and your husband had discussed previously and already had a united stance on, so this was a parenting fail. I, 35 female, separated from my husband, 37, over 10 years ago. Unfortunately, he's left me with a lot of debt to pay and in a position where I was nearly homeless. I only finished paying off the debt 2 years ago, but there's still a lot of work to do to improve my credit history. Because of all the stress he caused me, we never got divorced or formally separated. As a matter of fact, we never spoke after I was kicked out of the flat, so his girlfriend Anna could move in. I was planning to file for divorce once I had enough spare income, but some events took place before I was able to do so. Now to where I can be an idiot. 2 months ago, my husband passed away in a freak accident. He left no will behind and has a house, which is paid off with his girlfriend. He ended up getting a big promotion at work. I've spoken to the lawyer, and because we never divorced or filed for separation, I am entitled to half of the house as his next of kin. Last week, I informed Anna through a letter that I wanted the house to be sold. She can buy my half, or I'll have to force a sale. It's up to her. I don't want to live in the house, but the money from the sale could really help to sort out the damage done by the loans I had to pay for the ex, as well as a deposit for my own place, so I don't have to live in an absolute nightmare due to poor credit and not a very high-paying job. It will also help me work on my qualifications so I can get a better job and retire. However, Anna and my ex's family have called me a massive idiot, saying I have no right to the house. Legally, I do, and that I'm being cruel and vindictive. I have reminded them that it's not my fault their son hasn't divorced me or had a will, and said I don't see how it's unfair, as I had to pay for his debts while he lived a comfy life. So, am I the idiot? Edit. Neither I nor my late husband and his girlfriend have any children. My ex has maxed out my credit cards and took loans in my name, as well as cleared our savings account to fund his relationship with Anna and some of his gambling habits at the time. Due to being busy with work, I didn't discover the loans and cards being maxed out until it was too late, and I had a few notices of non-payment, and him kicking me out and basically making it seem to everyone that I had the problem, and he loaned me money, which I paid him back by taking loans and cards as well, as if I wanted him back, so made him gifts. The total amount of debt is a bit over $50K, which also resulted in me losing my job, while he got to keep his well-paying job. Regarding the house, both Anna and my ex are on the deeds and had joint mortgages, from what I was told. So legally, she is entitled to the other half of the house. This man had 10 years to make a will and force a divorce. He chose not to because it benefited him in some way. Well, now it benefits you, not the idiot. I hope the sale helps you. You owe nothing to his girlfriend. Sell the house and be done with it. Also, stop paying his debts if they're not also your debts. Some companies can assume you're admitting to the debts as your own by paying them. He had 10 years to make a will and force a divorce. He chose not to. In many places, if they divorced, he would have to take on half that debt. With no divorce, she had to pay it off to access credit and rebuild her life. Once she finished paying it off, she could start saving up. If he put his money into the apartment and into his girlfriend's accounts, waited a few years, and then got divorced, he could have pressed for half of her savings, then negotiated to leave them alone in exchange for her relinquishing her 25% claim in the apartment. Someone who lies that well, defrauds and frames other people like this, can do something like that. His sudden unexpected death just wasn't part of the plan. Right? By being a selfish idiot, in the end he screwed over his nasty girlfriend, who no doubt knew he was running up OP's cards too. Perfection. I love how this worked out for the OP. It saves her from future financial misery by this guy, and she gets to recoup some of her losses. Happy ending. It's called karma. OP, your ex has managed to repay you, accidentally. I'm gonna guess neither Anna nor ex's family were concerned about the right thing to do when you were the one being negatively impacted. It sucks for Anna, but bad decisions often have bad consequences. Let Anna's family pick up her tab. She had no conscience or remorse, knowing the situation your ex left you in, and now, nor should you. Force the sale and take what you're due, OP. My ex and his wife adopted a little girl, pre-tween, earlier this year. Her birthday's on the 22nd. This girl has become very attached to my daughter. The feeling is not exactly mutual, although my daughter is nice to her. My ex expected me to let our daughter be with him and their family on her birthday. My daughter plans to go on a trip up to the mountains with her friend's family for a few days. They leave this afternoon and will be getting back later in the day on the 23rd. With the holidays and other events, my daughter was not planning on staying at her dad's until the 27th. My ex is insisting that that's too long to wait and that his other daughter will be crushed that my daughter's not there on her birthday. According to him, she has a lot of issues with feeling forgotten and hasn't had the best experiences with birthdays in the past. So my ex and his wife wanted to make this one perfect. So they think my daughter needs to be there for it to be perfect, since she's her sister's favorite person. My daughter doesn't want to change her plans, though. While I feel bad for the little girl, my ex and his wife should have brought up her birthday sooner. He argues that they did, as it was mentioned some time ago, at my daughter's birthday, which was in May, that they would have a big birthday party for her too. Neither my daughter nor I remember this. Furthermore, I never knew when her birthday was. My daughter said she only remembered her birthday was in December and never knew the exact date. When her dad talked to her about the party this morning, I think the party plans and the exact date of her birthday should have been brought up more and been more concrete than that for us to plan around it. Not the idiot. Your daughter's not their adopted child's emotional support animal. Making your daughter change her plans for a sibling she barely knows is exactly the perfect way to make her resent and even dislike her new sister. Your ex isn't being very bright about this. He's saying, I mentioned it in passing once 7 months ago. How dare you not remember? Even if he really did, he's being unrealistic not to think it should be brought up several times over the year if it's that important. The kid has only been around for under a year, and your daughter doesn't have to bend to stepmom and dad's plans. All of this said, it would be nice to ask your daughter to phone her sister on the birthday, and if daughter has her own phone, to FaceTime or otherwise video chat her. If your daughter agrees to this, you should ask her if she would like you to call her to remind her to do it, and what would be a good time for her to call if so. This is a great opportunity for you to teach her that, even when plans can't be canceled, it's a good thing to care about others. My 38 male work held our annual holiday party last Friday. It was held at one of those axe throwing places, which I had never done before, so I figured it would be pretty fun. My wife, 36, and I have 3 kids, a tween, a pre-tween, and a kindergartner, so we rarely get out of the house for dates. The holiday party was planned almost 2 months ago, and my wife agreed to attend with me. I suggested we make it more of a date by either going out for drinks after the party or catching a late-night movie. She thought this was a good idea too. I also arranged for a babysitter to watch the kids that night. On the day of the party, my wife got home from work and told me she had a horrible day and was in a bad space mentally, so she didn't want to come to the party. I told her I was disappointed but understood if she wanted to stay home. As I was getting myself ready to head to the party, I called the babysitter and canceled. I apologized to her and offered to Venmo her an hour's worth of our agreed $30 rate to compensate for the cancellation, and she agreed that was reasonable. As I was getting ready to leave, my wife asked when the babysitter was going to come. I kind of looked at her funny and told her that I just canceled the babysitter because she was no longer coming with me. She got mad at me and told me that I knew she had a bad day, was in a bad mental state, and needed some time to herself. I told her that I had assumed none of that meant she was incapable of watching our kids, and that I didn't think having the babysitter come when my wife was home made any sense at all. She told me to call her back and see if she could still come to watch the kids, and I told her that if she wanted to do that, she could do it, but I'm not going to. She tried to argue with me about it, but I told her that I had to leave for the party. While I was at the party, she sent me multiple texts about how the kids were driving her nuts, that the babysitter didn't answer her calls, and that she needed me to come home. She kept blowing up my phone, and I eventually left the party over an hour early to go home. When I got there, she kept arguing with me about how I was an idiot for canceling the babysitter when I knew she had a rough day. I told her I wasn't going to pay a babysitter just so that my wife could rest after a bad day. I told her she could have just thrown a movie on for the kids and relaxed. I told her she was the one who ruined our potential night out, and that having a bad day at work is not a good enough reason to pay a babysitter $200. She still thinks I was an idiot for canceling the babysitter without talking to her first, and she's still mad at me for it. But I don't think that was an unreasonable assumption to make, considering that there have been plenty of times when I've had a bad day, and I'm still 100% capable of watching the kids by myself while my wife leaves the house. You are the idiot. First off, if you're going to cancel on your sitter within 12 hours, you should be paying her for the time she set aside for you. She can't find another gig at that time and probably depends on the money. Paying her for 1 hour is just insulting. Second, it's weird that you just immediately canceled the sitter. You didn't even give your wife time to settle in and decide if she wanted to go for a walk or treat herself to some takeout by herself. Or maybe she got sick. Have you even asked? People always use sitters when they aren't actually going to an event. You could have checked in with her and given her the option. I agree. Part of being in a true partnership is not going tit for tat, allowing your partner to be off the hook once in a while, working through minor disappointments, showing up for your person, and communicating. It seems you missed the boat on all those things. It sounds like you canceled the babysitter to punish your wife for not going with you. For all the parents and/or folks who aren't independently wealthy, responding OP's the idiot, please ask yourself this. When was the last time, after having a rough day at work, you decided that was a good reason to spend $200 on a babysitter so that you could stay home with your kids and the sitter? What? Never? Then shut up. Of course, OP, the person who made all the arrangements for their long-planned and much-anticipated date, canceled the sitter because he hired her because no parent was going to be home with the kids. Why on earth would he throw away $200? That cash can be put towards a sitter when they're both able to go out. Not the idiot. Am I the only one who wonders if the wife would go out and do something else, and that's why she was angry about not having a babysitter? OP, it sounds like you ruined her night out alone, and she got upset by that. I'm not so subtly implying that she had planned to go out and celebrate with someone else. My girlfriend, 29, Andrea, and I, 29 male, have been together for a few months now. Everything had gone smoothly until yesterday when she pulled off a ridiculous stunt. She called me late at night to say that she was seriously injured and having panic attacks and that no one else was with her as her parents were out, which was true, they were out. She said that she's also got some chest pain and she thinks that she's dying and that she's in a really bad state and can hardly breathe. She was heaving while she spoke. She begged me to help her. She said she'd already called 911, but also wanted to let me know, and I was shocked. I took my car to rush towards her house, and only after reaching it did I find out she was joking. She met me joyfully and said she only wanted to see how committed I am during an emergency, as that's an essential part of a relationship or something. I lost my temper and asked her what the heck her problem was. She said that she was testing me, and I got angry. I called her a witch and told her that I didn't deserve to be treated like trash and used like that. She was crying, saying that she only wanted to check whether I was a good fit and that I had overreacted. I left the house immediately and haven't talked to her since. She's been texting me, but I just ignored her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Run. She intentionally put you in a state of panic, causing you to drive in that state of panic, which is a recipe for disaster, an accident waiting to happen. You need to focus on the fact that she never gave your feelings any thought at all. She didn't dismiss your feelings. To dismiss your feelings, she would have had to consider them. She didn't even think about you at all. Your panic was what she was looking for. It made her happy. It made her laugh. That's how sociopaths feel. If you were killed in an accident on your way to her, it would have been a home run for her. For sure, there's really something not right here. If she thinks that what she did to you is okay, then she's got major issues. You jumped in your car and rushed over to her house. What if you'd been in an accident trying to get to her? What score did you get on her test then? This is so stupid. I really hope you consider whether or not you want to continue your relationship with her. She was testing your commitment? All she did was prove to you that she doesn't deserve your trust or respect you as a person. Just tell her she made a great commitment test and thank her. Her test made you realize that she's not someone you could commit to and saved you a lot of time and trouble in the long run. Also, what does it prove? I don't know about you, but I think only a monster would not help someone in that state, even if the person in distress dialed the wrong number. Time to test her. Tell her you won't talk with her for the next 65 years. You just want to test her commitment to the relationship. My boyfriend, 25, recently moved in with me, 21 female. The biggest problem we've had so far is arguments about cooking. He lived off ramen and sandwiches before moving in, so he says that I'm the one who cares about food. Note that he happily eats what I cook, suggests recipes to try, and hasn't had any ramen since moving in. Even though I bought it for him, he chooses the food that I make. So since I'm cooking for myself anyways, I might as well cook for him too. I told him that isn't fair. Either he needs to pick up some more chores to compensate for never cooking, or he needs to cook 3 days a week. He said he didn't care about food, so he shouldn't have to cook. I'm just doing it for myself. So I only cooked for myself. I got him a pack of ramen, even his preferred brand, and only made portions for one. He was angry when I made myself risotto and he got a bowl of ramen, and I reminded him that he doesn't care about food. Am I the idiot here? I don't mean to be difficult, but expecting me to cook all the time is not fair. After several conversations about this led nowhere, I decided to call his bluff. We pay bills 50-50 if that matters. It's been about a week, and he's angry and told me it's no more effort for me to cook for two more than one. But it's about the principle. I have college full-time and work part-time. He works full-time. Right now, we each do our own laundry and take turns doing dishes. I deep clean the kitchen and bathroom every 2 weeks, and he vacuums once a week and mops every 2 weeks. I cook and do groceries and change the sheets and take out the trash and dust. Not the idiot. Perhaps instead of taking turns doing the dishes, you could do the cooking and he can do all the dishes. They're both daily chores and are kind of related, so fairness is more or less baked in. His argument that you're cooking for yourself anyway isn't a good one, really. If it stands, then his once-a-week vacuuming is for himself and shouldn't count. He's trying to pretend he doesn't care, but as soon as it inconveniences him, he suddenly cares. He does want you to cook for him, and he values your cooking. So what does he get out of pretending he doesn't care? It's just a way to devalue your labor so he doesn't feel obligated to contribute. Next, he won't care about laundry, and then he won't care if the house is clean, etc. Girl, you are another example of why men in relationships live longer and better lives, and women's lives get worse. And the extra stress will take some years from your life too. Move him out until he's a man you would like to live with, or get someone else. Right now, a roommate would be a better partner to live with.